The pen was already in my hand when I heard my own heartbeat start again and understood I had been given the one thing the dead never get. A second copy of the day. I was standing in the glass conference room on the ninth floor with the whole firm watching, and Gideon Fell was leaning over my shoulder with that warm gravel voice saying, "Just the authorship line, Nell, and the drive, and we're submitted. It's a formality. The firm submits as one body. It's always been that way." In my last life, I signed. I signed because I was 31 and grateful and had spent 4 years being told I was lucky to be in that room. That signature gave away the Harrow Street design, 14 months of my nights. And by the following spring, Trey Vaughn was on magazine covers explaining my building to people. And I was the difficult woman who had made unfounded claims, and no firm in the city would take my calls. And I died 6 years later in a rented flat with the drawing still in a box under the bed. I know exactly how that ink dries. So this time, I set the pen down on the table, very gently, and I smiled at 40 people. And I said, "I'd like my own name on it, not instead of the firm's," alongside. The room made the sound money makes when it is surprised. And Gideon Fell's kind face did not change at all, which was how I knew, in this life the way I never let myself know in the last, that I had just declared war on the most patient man in the building. Trey recovered first, because Trey always recovered first. "Nell, come on," he laughed. Easy, arm sliding along the back of my chair. "You worked on it. Everybody worked on it. You want a credit line? We'll put you in the acknowledgments. That's not a fight worth having an hour before deadline." Everybody worked on it. In my last life, that sentence was the whole coffin. So I said, 14 months ago, I registered the Harrow Street massing study with the Copyright Office under my own name, before it was ever a firm project. It's time-stamped. I did it because my father told me the boring paperwork is the part that bites. That was true, and it was the one thing I had done right in a life I had otherwise given away, and I had spent my first hour back in this body, confirming that in this timeline the registration still existed. Trey's mouth opened and shut. Sasha Pike, my best friend of 9 years, put her hand on my arm and said, softly, with her eyes already shining, "Nell, sweetheart, this isn't like you. You've never been the person who counts credits." And she was right. That was the trap. I had never been that person, because for 4 years, the highest compliment anyone in that firm ever paid me was that I was generous. And generous, I finally understood, was just the word they used for a woman who could be billed. I did not pull my arm away. I said, "You're right. It isn't like the old me. The old me got exactly what she deserved for that." They pivoted within a week, and they pivoted hard, because the patient ones always feel the floor tilt first. Gideon called a partner's review and framed it beautifully. No accusation, only concern. The word he used was ownership. And by the end of the hour, it had been gently established that my registration was possibly a breach of my own employment agreement, that a junior taking private title to firm concepts was a serious matter, and that everyone hoped, warmly, that this could be handled internally. Thank you for listening to Channel Crystal Novel. Then came the part that actually hurt. And I want to be honest about it, because a story where I only ever say the perfect thing is a lie. Sasha came to my flat that night with wine and no wine glasses, the way she had 100 times. And she sat on my floor and said, "I have to say this because I love you. You were nobody when Gideon found you. You were doing shop fronts in a basement office. He put you in that room. He gave you Harrow Street. And now you're going to burn the man who made you over a name on a form. And everyone out there is going to say you're ungrateful. And I can't stand to watch it because I know you're not. I know you're just scared." And it landed. All of it, because every fact in it was true. He had put me in that room. I had been nobody. There is a particular loneliness in being the only person who knows that the man who lifted you did it because you were cheap to lift and cheaper to lower. I sat with that for a long moment, Then I said, Sasha, being handed a chair is not the same as being handed the work. He gave me the room. I gave the room a building. She left. And I sat on my own floor until 3 in the morning and grieved a friendship I had already buried once. The awards evening was where they meant to finish it, and it was where I let them. The Harrow Street design took the city prize, exactly as it had in my last life, and Trayvon walked to the podium in a good suit to accept it, exactly as he had. And I sat at a round table in the middle of the room and let him get 4 sentences in before I stood up. Before we go on, I said, there's a group message I think the room should see, because I received it by accident this morning, forwarded by someone in it to the wrong thread. The screen behind Trey, which had been showing my building, went instead to a phone screenshot 4 meters tall. It was a chat of 3 people. It was Trey, complaining that the Harrow drawing still had my initials in the title block, and asking who was going to clean them. It was Gideon, replying in his calm gray sentences, that the initials would be handled the way they were handled with Odell in the year 19, and with Ferrante before that, and that the important thing was to let Nell escalate first, so the record showed her as the difficult party. And it was Sasha, who had not been forwarding anything by accident, saying only, "At the very end, I can't do this one, I'm out, and I'm sending it." Trey did the loudest possible thing, which was to spin around at Gideon in front of 600 people and say, "You told me she'd never see that," which is, of course, a confession, delivered by the least careful man in the room. And I said, into a microphone that was still hot, the line I had been carrying for 2 lifetimes. "You didn't steal a building, Gideon. You steal the same building every 4 years, and you've just been calling it mentorship." Odell and Ferrante turned out to be real people with real names and real careers that had quietly stopped, 11 and 7 years ago respectively, and both of them called me within a month. The firm's insurers opened an internal review that Gideon was not permitted to sit on. The city prize was withdrawn from Trey and reissued in my name at a small ceremony with no cameras, which suited me perfectly. 2 developers with buildings in progress moved their contracts. Gideon Fell resigned before the partners could vote, kept his license, and lost every room that had ever mattered to him. And the architecture school where he had lectured for 19 years let the appointment lapse without a phone call, which for a man like that is a kind of burial. Trey Vaughn sells kitchen renovations now, on charm, which was always the only asset he had. Gideon came to see me once, at the end, in the small studio I had opened over a bicycle shop, and he did the softest and therefore the most dangerous thing left to him. He said, "I made you. Whatever else is true, that is also true, and you know it." And I put down my coffee and I said, "You didn't make me. You found me early and priced me low. That's not making someone. That's shopping." He left, and the door closing behind him was the quietest, fullest sound I have ever heard. Sasha and I are not what we were, and I have made my peace with that. But she sent the screenshot when sending it cost her everything, and a person who does that gets a chair at my table for life, which is why she has one on Thursdays, in a studio with 4 employees and a lease in my own name. Odell works with me now. She is 62 and terrifying and does the structural review. And on her first day, she put a chipped mug on my desk that says intern on the side and said it had been hers at the firm and she wanted it somewhere it would be laughed at. And now every new hire gets handed the intern mug on their first morning and told the whole story, all of it. The pen and the timestamp and the 4-meter screenshot. And every single time somebody in my studio is asked to sign something they have not read, the entire room says it together without being prompted, in a bored chorus like a family saying grace. Put the pen down. 3 years on, we are 11 people, and we have a waiting list, and my name is on the door in plain letters. And last month, a young designer came to me white-faced because a developer wanted her concept signed over as a formality. And before she could even finish the sentence, the whole studio said it. "Put the pen down." She looked around at all of them, baffled and starting to grin. I said, "Sit down, I'll explain. It's a long story and it happened to me twice. So let me ask you, since you followed her all the way back, did she go far enough or was she still too merciful? Comment justice if the ending was perfect. Comment harder if you wanted an even colder revenge. Your comments decide how ruthless the next ending should be. Like and subscribe if you want to be here for the next.